Let's jump right into today's explainer, because we are looking at a truly wild, high-stakes mythological thriller. It's all about Rama, the mighty son of Jamadagni. And look, this isn't just your standard ancient king story. Oh no, we are talking about a massive, epic cycle of extreme violence, crushing grief, and ultimately some incredibly severe spiritual penance. The ancient text we're unpacking today describes a world where a single grief-stricken warrior literally reshapes the Earth's landscape and its entire social order. So let's track this journey step by step and see exactly how deep sorrow turns into unimaginable wrath, and how that same wrath eventually gives way to staggering acts of sacrifice.
The blame is mine, O Father, that like a stag in the wood, thou hast been shot dead with arrows. Wow, that really hits you, right? It just plunges us straight into the profound, piteous grief of a son mourning a horrific loss. This passage captures Rama in a moment of absolute, paralyzing despair. He's looking down at his slain father, comparing him to a defenseless stag shot dead in the woods. The emotional weight here is it's incredibly heavy. Rama takes on this massive burden of guilt, crying out that the blame is his. It really anchors this whole world-altering epic in a deeply personal, relatable human emotion, the shattering pain of losing a parent in such a brutal, unjust way.
Section 1. A father's tragic murder.
So, before the vengeance, before all those earth-shaking battles we're going to talk about, there's this one singular, horrific event that sets everything off. The crucial thing to understand here is the stark contrast between the victim and the aggressors. On one hand, you have Rama's father. He was this aged, virtuous man, completely devoted to righteousness, averse to fighting, and totally harmless. In fact, he was actively engaged in peaceful spiritual penance at the exact moment he was killed. And on the other hand, well, the text literally describes his attackers, the sons of Kartavirya, as mean and stupid wretches. They didn't just kill him in a fair fight. They slaughtered this unresisting, unassisted old man with hundreds of sharpened arrows. It's an awful, shameless sin, basically an act of sheer cowardice that completely shatters the cosmic balance. And obviously, it demands unmatched retribution.
Chapter 2. The Vow of Vengeance.
From that moment of profound injustice, something snaps. We see this radical transformation take hold. After wailing for his father and carefully cremating him on the funeral pyre, Rama transitions from sorrow to just apocalyptic rage. He doesn't just go after the direct murderers. No, he vows to completely slaughter the entire military caste. Taking up his weapon, in a mood the text actually compares to the god of death himself, he starts his campaign. First, he single-handedly executes the sons of Kartavirya. But it doesn't stop there. He then strikes down all the Kshatriya followers of those sons, doing so 3 separate times. And it just keeps escalating to this terrifying peak. 7 times, this powerful lord exterminates the military tribes of the entire earth. He literally becomes the absolute conqueror of hostile cities, just a solitary force of unparalleled destruction.
Section 3. Exterminating the military caste. The resulting devastation forever alters the landscape of this ancient world, and the sheer volume of this conflict leaves a permanent physical scar on the earth itself. 5. That number represents a really gruesome geographical reality created by Rama's wrath. Over an attractive land called Samantapanchaka, his relentless campaign results in the creation of exactly 5 lakes of blood. Just pause and try to visualize the staggering magnitude of that for a second. That's not a metaphor, by the way. The text explicitly states that these 5 lakes of blood were physically made by him. It's a terrifying monument to his total subjugation of the military race across the globe.
And then, in this shocking crimson aftermath, we witness a really grim offering of respect. Rama, standing there as the mightiest scion of Brigu's race, uses these 5 lakes of blood to offer libations to his forefathers, the Brigus. The very blood of his enemies becomes the ritual offering to his ancestors. It is a chilling fusion of ultimate vengeance and ancient duty, officially completing the violent vow he made back at his father's funeral pyre.
But here's the thing, the story doesn't just end in endless bloodshed. Right at the absolute peak of this violence, there's a divine intervention. Richika appears to Rama in a visible form and speaks words of counsel to him. This is a massive turning point in the epic. It basically acts as a circuit breaker, right? It shifts the narrative momentum completely away from pure slaughter and initiates a journey towards spiritual realignment, guiding Rama away from being the god of death and back toward a path of divine sacrifice and penance.
Chapter 4, Sacrifice and Golden Altars.
Following this divine counsel, Rama's actions pivot entirely. We go from destruction to creation and offering. He performs a mighty sacrifice to gratify the Lord of the Celestials, which leads to one of the most astonishing gifts recorded in the whole text. To grasp the massive scale of his offerings, you really have to look at the altar he builds. He raises an altar made entirely of solid gold, measuring an astonishing 10 vyamas in breadth and 9 in height. 10 vyamas. He then makes a gift of this monumental golden structure, along with bestowing the earth itself to the magnanimous Kasyapa. The wealth and scale of this sacrifice are just absolutely beyond comprehension, and it was all meant to cleanse the immense karmic weight of exterminating the military tribes.
There's also this specific term that pops up here, Khandavayamas. This highlights the distribution of all this immense wealth, but it also anchors the myth in ancient vocabulary and ritual logic. See, the golden altar was so massive that, at Kasyapa's bidding, the ministering priests, the Brahmanas, actually had to divide it into a number of shares. Because they took these shares, they became historically reputed as the Khandavayamas, which literally translates to share takers. It's a really fascinating look at how ancient rituals and the literal dividing up of spoils could create entirely new titles and social legacies.
So think about the extreme contrast we're dealing with now. On one side of the coin, you have the exterminator of the military race, this wrathful, unstoppable warrior of immense strength who subdued the entire world. But then, after bestowing the earth upon the high-souled Kasyapa, he transforms completely. On the other side, he becomes a peaceful ascetic, engaged in an exceedingly severe form of penance, completely withdrawing from the world to dwell on the Mahendra hill, the monarch of mountains. The duality of his character is staggering, going straight from the ultimate destroyer to the ultimate ascetic.
And that brings us to our final chapter, meeting Yudhishthira.
Generations later, the legacy of Rama is met by an entirely new era of virtuous leaders. There's this beautifully peaceful interaction between the once wrathful Rama and the virtuous king Yudhishthira. It all happens precisely on the 14th day of the moon. At the proper hour, the mighty-souled Rama reveals himself. King Yudhishthira, known as the most righteous of the rulers of men, along with his younger brothers, worship Rama and pay him the very highest honors. And in return, the king receives words of praise from the great ascetic. At Rama's direction, they peacefully spend the night on the Mahendra hill, and the very next morning they continue their journey towards the southern regions. It is a moment of profound tranquility that stands in such stark contrast to those bloody lakes of his past.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. We've traced a journey from a cowardly murder to world-ending vengeance, through literal lakes of blood to massive golden sacrifices, and finally to quiet nights of mutual respect on a mountainside. How does a tale of such immense apocalyptic violence ultimately resolve in worship, praise, and peaceful journeys? It reveals the incredibly complex cycles of violence, justice, and spiritual purification embedded deep within ancient epic storytelling. It challenges us to think about how retribution and penance balance each other out in the grand scheme of this mythology. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep questioning the myths that shape our history, and I'll see you next time.